You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, CBS soap opera fans. This is Soap Dirt on YouTube, and we want to talk about RJ Forrester's return on Bold and the Beautiful. And what we are wondering over here is whether or not RJ is back for revenge against Thomas. Before we dig into why we think that might be something on his agenda, go ahead and click that subscribe button below if you're not already subscribed to Soap Dirt on YouTube, so you get all your latest soap opera spoilers, videos, casting news, and everything you need to know about your favorite soaps right here. So if you don't remember, the last young actor to play RJ Forrester was Anthony Turple. He was in the role from 2016 to 2018. And of course, you should know as a faithful B&B watcher that RJ's parents are RJ Forrester and Brooke Logan. He is RJ Forrester Jr. And he left in 2018. He's been off at boarding school. So it's been, give or take, close to 5 years since we have seen RJ and Brooke's only son. And this time he's coming back with a recast. It's Joshua Hoffman in the role. And it's not necessarily a Soros. These young actors, Turple and Hoffman, are pretty close in age. So this is not a soap opera rapid aging syndrome. He's not coming back, closer to Steffi and Thomas's age or anything. He's still going to be a young man. It'll be interesting to see if they say that he's in college or he already went to college, because he went off to go to high school. So technically he should be in college, but maybe not. We'll see. So if you don't know Joshua Hoffman, when you look at him, he looks familiar, and that's probably because you've seen him on some other big TV shows. He had a part on Shameless over on Showtime. He did a little work on Girl Meets World, Code Black, and Criminal Minds. So if he looks passing familiar, that could be why. So RJ is back, and he's going to tell his parents the reason for his return and his plans. And that's the official CBS spoilers. And so far, that is the only official CBS spoiler for Bold and the Beautiful for RJ Forrester's return. But what we are wondering is, because of the recent chain of events, is whether RJ comes back not just with plans about his future, but an agenda. And if he does have an agenda, the likely target of that agenda has to be Thomas Forrester, his half-brother, right? Because there can be little doubt that RJ Forrester knows what Thomas has been up to. Now, granted that he's in this hard place because Hope is his half-sister and Thomas is his half-brother, but he's clearly closer to the Logan side of the family. You never hear Steffi and Thomas really talking about their half-brother RJ. They don't talk about him. They talk about the two of them as siblings, and that's kind of it, even though they have this messy family tree and all these step siblings. So Thomas did Brooke wrong by busting up their marriage, with that CPS call that got her in a lot of trouble, and Ridge walked out on her without even explaining or breaking up to her, and then he ran and he hopped in the sack with Taylor, and then he just divorced Brooke, and then he was just about to marry Taylor when everything came out thanks to little Douglas Forrester. So although Thomas has asked for Brooke's forgiveness, and she seems to have given it, and Ridge seems to have forgiven his son as well, RJ Forrester may not be feeling very forgiving of his big brother. I mean, he busted up his parents' marriage. And even though RJ was out of town, that might not sit right with him at all. And then there's the other factor of Thomas being fired and then rehired, because without him, hope for the future would have died. So he can see that his sister is being put in a tough spot by Thomas as well. So there's a couple of things that we were thinking about that RJ could do to get vengeance on Thomas. One of the things that he can do is try and push him away from Hope and away from his position at Hope for the Future. So maybe RJ has taken some design courses. Maybe he's going to come back with a degree in design. I don't know. But it could be that he is a burgeoning designer himself and will start designing for Hope for the Future, and then try to get Thomas's gig as lead designer. And certainly Liam would like that better. And given how much Hope has been mooning over Thomas, it would be better for her marriage if her brother RJ was the lead designer. So maybe RJ chooses to sideline Thomas and try to snatch his role as designer. But this is also, personal, because Thomas ruined his parents' marriage and his parents still aren't together. And then there's that messy thing where Brooke and Taylor have made the pact to both stay away from Rich. And so that's kind of preventing his parents from having a reunion, which wouldn't even be necessary had Thomas not screwed them over and broken them up. So I'm also wondering if RJ is going to go after a more personal form of revenge. Maybe he will do something really dirty to Thomas, like Thomas did to Brooke. And granted, if you're a Team Thomas person, it's definite, Brooke did threaten to call CPS because Thomas was carving an apple with a knife. So Brooke was over the top with that, and her kind of insane reaction to him cutting an apple is what inspired that whole CPS scam that cost her marriage. So, it's hard to say, because if she wasn't also being continually toxic to Thomas, then maybe he wouldn't be continually toxic to her. So there is, in some regards, definitely some back and forth between Brooke and her stepson. And some of that is down to her just not being very kind to her stepson. And she's known him his entire life. And, you forgive your kids things. And certainly Brooke has been forgiven, goodness, how many things, over the years. But at any rate, we still suspect that RJ might be back and acting in defense of his mother. So he could take on Thomas both personally and professionally. There's a lot of things that he could do on a personal level to hurt Thomas. He could, kind of do the same thing like Thomas did to his mom. He could plant things to make it look like Thomas is stepping outside boundaries. He could make Thomas, he could order flowers sent to Hope with a romantic card on them. And then that way, if Thomas denies it, nobody will believe him. He could do stuff like that to make it look like he is obsessed with Hope still and get him thrown away from the family. That would probably be RJ's easiest way to get revenge on Thomas, is to discredit him and make him look like he's the same old schemer, even though this time Thomas really seems like he's trying to be a good boy. Reach down and click that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss any of your latest Bold and the Beautiful updates. And, I'm excited about RJ Forrester being back, but only if they do something with the character. In the past, the only times we've seen RJ is when he was trotted out for family occasions. He's never really had much of a storyline of his own when he was, a young man before he was sent away. And this time, I hope they're bringing him back for a purpose. And while I do like Thomas Forrester and I want to see him get a chance with Hope, that's just me personally, I also think that it's totally plausible if RJ Forrester came back with a chip on his shoulder and went head on to try and destroy his brother, Thomas Forrester.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.